Hey everybody, it's Gail, and this is Errata-Hate episode 41. Welcome to batch 4. We made it. I just want to say thank you one last time to your understanding about the lack of how-tos in batch 3 while my hands healed up. They're still on the mend, but they're doing way better. My shoulder is doing way better. I did strain the hell out of it. So I remind you again, we should all take better care of ourselves, probably. Probably. So anyway, I wanted to start this batch with a fairly easy project. Something that I could do quickly, but that I could sort of put down so I could rest, etc. And so I want to show you how to make an open front raglan sweater. So the raglan style is also known as top down. And this is a closed neck dress, actually, full dress, that I made using the raglan from the top down, and I grabbed it so that you can see, I can find it. I found it and I lost it and I found it again. So hopefully you can see kind of, there's a dip and then there's kind of a point right there because that's where all the increases are, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that kind of style where you sort of have the seams coming out at an angle. And so I am going to be using, what is this yarn here? This is Baby Hugs. This is Red Hugs, Baby Hugs by Red Heart, not Red Hugs by Baby Heart. This is Peach. I just thought it was pretty, and it was soft, and it's an acrylic, which means that I'm going to spill coffee on it and be able to throw it in the washing machine. So the first thing you do to work top down is you make a chain. And depending on how long your chain is, and depending on where you put your increases, you can make a sweater that is very, very slouchy, or one that's a little tighter around the shoulders, just depending on what you want. I'm doing sort of a higher neck sweater, a crew neck sweater, if you will. Let me push this back just a little bit. All right, yeah. And so I chose a chain that, when I wrap it around my neck, you know, there's not a lot of extra. And by the way, if you want sort of this size to start with, I think it's a good size to start with. All you got to do is just make a chain that wraps around your head. And hold on, yep, wraps around my head. It's a little bit tight, but that's okay because this is not going to be a pullover sweater. And you can do raglans. You know, once you learn how to do a raglan, you can do closed raglans like I showed you. You can do button downs. You can add zippers. You can fit them to yourself, which is going to be a different video because I just want to do the standard raglan look right now. And so I've got this chain here, and what I've got to do is decide where to put my increases. So you work raglans as stacked increases, and if you've made the pencil skirt, which I think was episode 12, and if you've made the shorts, which is episode 20, you've done those increases. You just haven't done them for a sweater. So it's 4 increases. And what you have to do is figure out where they need to go. And what you're trying to do is basically set the front and back points of your collar. So, for example, for me, the front point of my collar is probably going to be right around here. That's around stitch 10. And then I'll just work until I'm kind of at the back of my neck. And raglans are classically worked in double crochet. They don't have to be. You can work them however you want. It's really the type of increase that makes it a raglan. And so I'm going to hop off real quick to get that first set of increases set up so that you can see what it looks like when you do it and get a better idea visually of what I'm doing. So I will be back. All right, I am back, and I have finished that first set of increases. So this is my first one here, and you'll see that it is 3 double crochet into a single stitch, and then up here it's 3 double crochet in a single stitch, and you will have this little opening that's totally normal. That's part of the style. And what I did to get those was I laid it across my neck and got it, you know, pretty well centered, and sort of chose things from that perspective. And so my front increase is kind of right at my collarbone, and then my back increase is just like kind of right at the top of my shoulder. And I counted those stitches while I did it, and this first increase is stitch 15, and this increase is stitch 30, And then I came over to the other end of my chain and I counted into 15 and put a stitch marker, and then counted up to 30 and put another stitch marker so that when I work across, I know where those other two increases are going to go. And once you work across and you've completed your first set of increases, you're going to turn your work and you're going to work the other way. And in every set of increases, in fact, I can just show you this now. I'll just flip my work real quick. So let me just add a couple stitches here and I will show you how to stack the increases, because you will always stack your increases and you will be increasing every row until you get to the width you need. So this is a single stitch. Now here is my increase. I'm going to perform a double crochet into the first stitch of that original increase. Okay. And I'm going to increase by putting 3 double crochet stitches into that second stitch from the original increase. And then I'm going to complete a double crochet in the last stitch of that original increase. And so every time you come up on one of the increases, that's what you're going to do. So it's going to be a single stitch on the end, 3 stitches in that middle stitch, and then a single stitch on the end again. And that is how you do your increases. That's what gives you that sort of distinctive seam for the raglan. And we are going to keep doing increases until we can wrap the front and back increases against each other to make an armhole. And there's actually a very important part of that you need to remember, which is the width of your arm may not actually be enough to make enough of a front of a sweater, depending on how you want your sweater to hang. And so I'm going to go get this to the size of my arm and come back and explain that with a better picture, because my chest is larger than my back. So I need more increases in order to make sure I can pull my sweater around me, which I'm sure will make sense to you when you see me do it. I hope. Hey everybody, I am back with all the raglan increases that it takes me to make something I can wrap around my arm. So I'm going to show you how to do the join to make the sleeve starts, and then we're going to talk about sort of how to read the fit of what you're doing. So this is the last set of increases I did on the first increase of this side. Here's the first, here's the second. I'm going to work a double crochet into each one of those increase stitches. So 1 double crochet in the first one, 1 double crochet in the next one, and 1 double crochet in the third one. And now to make the sleeve start, I'm going to take this other increase, fold it to meet the increase I just worked in, and then in that increase also do 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet, 1 double crochet. And let's do that. And if I felt like I had a really good sleeve start that I was comfortable with the size with, what I would do is work straight across to this other increase. I would work these again as 1 single crochet into each stitch, fold the other increase over, do the same thing, and then I would have both sleeve starts started. So you can see the sleeve start here. And I'm just going to add a couple more stitches real quick so I have a little extra to work with. The thing about sleeve start is that it's great because then you can really start trying on as you go, and you can always see the length and where it's falling. But before you absolutely commit to the sleeve size you have, definitely try it on, because there's a couple of things that can trip you up if you're not careful. Sorry about the pauses. I'm trying to... There we go. Okay. And to do this with just the one sleeve, you just kind of want the other sleeve tucked over comfortably. So I've got the one sleeve finished. It's a very snug fit under my arm. You know, if I was going for a very snug fit, that would be great. You know, because you can do a snug fit, you can do a loose fit. That's kind of the point. But the problem here is that where it's fitting now and where it needs to go are not the same size. My chest is very wide. And if I keep working in this same size, having joined the sleeve, because once the sleeves are joined, you stop increasing on a classic raglan, it's going to start really opening down the middle because it's got to get around the rest of me. And, you know, if you want an open front raglan that you can't button or sort of pull around you closer, you know, go ahead, keep a nice snug sleeve, go ahead with it. I prefer my raglans to have a little more looseness, especially if they're an open front, because I like to cuddle into my sweaters. So what I'm actually going to do is, knowing that I still need this extra space here, I'm going to undo this sleeve start, and then I'm probably going to work 4 more rows with just the regular raglan increases, join again, and try it on again, and see kind of how it's fitting. Because that'll get it long enough, it's hitting that extra width that I need to cover, and I can get a really good idea of if I can close it comfortably and kind of how much extra space I have. There are ways to do a fit so that I can have a snug sleeve with a wider chest, or a more open sleeve with a rather fitted chest, but those are discussions for another day. We're just trying to get through sort of a raglan 101 here. So I'm going to go add those rows, and I'll be back to show you what the difference is, and we'll also start talking about pockets. Okay, I am back from making that those extra increases. I've joined my sleeve the way that I showed you earlier, and I've got a couple of inches underneath it now, and what I have done just before I came on camera was I started the procedure for making the pockets. So back in episode 28, I showed you a couple of ways that I make pockets. One of them is this way, where you just chain stitch and you skip chains to make what will become the top of the pocket. And then there was another way as well. I didn't do a full technique where I showed you how to, you know, make them or attach them, because pockets are part of larger projects. They're not standalone. But I wanted to show you, so for these pockets, I want to do 2 front pockets. I want them to be in the same place on both sides. And so this is the beginning of one of my front sides, and I did 15 double crochets, I chained 15, I skipped 15, and then I picked up double crocheting after that. And I just want to show you real quick, because I'm going to work to the other end, of course, and at, you know, if this was the other side, so it would look like this, then this would be the beginning of working the pocket, since I'm going towards the other side. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to get to this, you know, this is stitch 30 here, this first one next to this double crochet. So I'm going to get to that stitch. I'm going to chain 15, skip 15, and then finish with 15 on the other side to make the other opening of the pocket. But what I want to show you right now, if you haven't done a lot of work with working with chains while building stuff, I just want to show you there are 2 ways to do it. Neither one is wrong, neither one is better than the other. So the first one is that you work in the chain itself. And so in that case, I would come in here and I would work through each chain across, like I would work a regular chain row to start. And so that'll give me, you know, a nice pocket. The other thing you can do, which I can be much easier when you're first learning how to do like chain stuff like this, is just crochet around the chain the same number of stitches that you crocheted the chain. And then, let me do a few here. Once you do that, just your continued work on the project will space it nice and even, because you're not going to add any, you're not going to be adding to this chain, so it's just the 15 on the chain. So those are the 2 ways that you can sort of work that chain to start making the next part of the jacket after you've made the little pocket pouch. But the other thing I want to talk to you about real quick, let me do a couple more stitches here, is I want to talk to you about pocket placement, because I've had a couple of times where I'm like, I'm going to put pockets on it, it's going to be great, and then they were either too high or too low. because while I thought the top of the pocket was at a good spot, I forgot that the top of the pocket is only part of it. So let me get this on here. By the way, I've gotten into my second skein of this yarn, and it's so soft and squishy. Like, it was a great find. Alright, so, here's my pocket. It's kind of down on the side here, which is really nice. And, the thing is, like, this is a good pocket for me to reach into. And the trick that I have is I usually like my pockets to be about as deep as my hand. And so I can reach into this pocket, and it's not super awkward. I can get in there and get my phone and that sort of thing. So that's the first thing you should consider is, like, how big of a chicken wing are you making to get into your pocket? But also, if the pocket was lower, can I get to the bottom of the pocket? And that's the big problem I've had with making pockets that I start lower, is I go to put my hands in them, and my hands don't reach the bottom, so the pockets aren't very good. So just something to keep in mind if you're placing pockets. You can totally skip this and just keep working those rows down. You know, once you've joined the sleeve, as I've done here, you just work double crochets back and forth until you get the length that you want on the sweater. And so I'm going to go and put these pockets on nice and proper, and I will be showing you how to make the pocket lining. I think I'm actually going to sew in some fabric this time. Making lining with yarn is possible, but it can make things very bulky. So I'll show you a couple of basic sewing tips on how to get the pocket lining in when I get to that point. But for now, I'm working on getting down to the length that I want for this sweater. And then when I come back after the length is finished, we're going to start working on adding sleeves from the sleeve points. So I will see you all in a bit. Okay, so I was working on the length of the sweater because I wanted a longer sweater. I like big, long sweaters. And then this happened. And I got pissed. So I'm not going to work on the length of the sweater right now. It is not a piece that you need to see me do, because once you're working in those straight rows after you've joined the sleeves, you know, it's as long as you want it to be, it's as short as you want it to be. You get to decide where it cuts off. So what I want to show you now is how to take this sleeve start that we made by joining and add more sleeve to it. If you like the cap sleeve look you generally get from a raglan and you don't want to add sleeves, like, don't add sleeves. That's like the whole point of the raglan, is that you're working top down so you can fit and you can do whatever as you go. But anyway, so here's your join. And what I'm going to do is start right here in one half of the join. I'm going to bring my yarn through, and I'm going to chain 2, and that's going to count as my first double crochet for this round. And then I'm going to come over here where you can see the top of a double crochet, and I'm going to work into the top of that double crochet, and then I'm going to work into every double crochet around, because when we join these from a straight line, we lined up all of these stitches so that they're still usable from the top, so we're not joining from the side of a stitch or anything. So all you got to do is just work on top of those stitches like you would if you were doing a color change. 2 things to keep in mind when you're working this. First of all, make sure you note the number of stitches, because I've had times where I've been working on sleeves and one sleeve has had 1 or 2 more stitches than the next sleeve, and honestly, don't worry. If you're 1 or 2 stitches off, just track back a few stitches on the second sleeve and just plug those in somewhere. It'll smooth out really easily. You don't have to worry about any sort of weird shaping or anything if you do that. But, you know, just so you know that your sleeves are the same size. The second thing you want to do is make a note about whether you're working back to front or front to back. So, for example, this is my starting point. I'm working here, and this is the front of my work. So I'm actually working front to back when I am putting my stitches in, and that's important so that your stitches on the other arm can face the same way. It's a very minor thing. If it turns out that you make them in opposite directions, you're probably the only one who's going to know. But if you're like me, it's going to bug you. So I always like to make those notes so I can make sure that everything looks the same. So what's happening here is I'm just working my way back around to that joint. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around, and my last double crochet is going to go here. And then I'm actually going to work in rows, going back and forth, because the rest of the raglan is worked in back and forth rows. If you would prefer to join and turn or join and work in a spiral, that's fine. You know, it just, for me, it's an aesthetic. I like the way it looks. I also tend to drop stitches when I'm working in the round-on sleeves, and so working them side to side and then seaming afterwards keeps me from suddenly having a very narrow sleeve that I was not expecting. So I'm gonna do my sleeves down to just under my elbow, because I'm gonna add a big trim when I'm done. But once the sleeves are in on both sides, I can show you how the pockets are gonna form together, and we'll be pretty close to being done to just sort of this basic raglan that I'm going for, that I just want to give you a sense of how to make and how to shape, you know, a really simple raglan, so that, you know, you can experiment on your own, but also I have other raglan projects I'd like to do for the channel. So I'm gonna go work on sleeves, and I will see you guys in a bit. Okay, we've got Quinn all dressed up in the current version of this raglan. I've got a length that I like. I got both sleeves on. They're not seamed yet, which is why that one is up and that one looks weird. I'm going to seam them when I'm done. What I'm working on right now is to get the inserts in the pockets so that I have a proper pocket. And I have this really cute flamingo fabric that I'm using to do that. And when I get it finished, you'll actually be able to see the flamingo poking out of the top here, which I think will be really cute. So what I did was I cut this panel, and I have pinned it along the bottom edge of the pocket here, and then I have pinned the sides so that they're folded over so that it'll be a nice straight seam. And then what I'm going to do after I sew this part to the fabric and then sew these seams without sewing to the fabric is I'm going to take this bottom seam, not this bottom edge, flip it upward, tuck it under as well, like I have this one, and then it's going to go up here so that there's a proper pocket, and I'll be sewing the sides together then. So I just wanted you to get a sense of how I pinned that up. So I'm going to go get my sewing kit out and get to work on this thing. Hey everybody, I'm back, and I have a sweater. As you can see, I have seamed the sleeves. I just did a slip stitch seam in them. I like doing that with my raglans just to make sure the sleeves are going to stay all together. And I have also finished the pockets. You can see the fabric peeking out there, and they're a little shorter than I meant them to be, but that's because I didn't measure before I cut. So you learn from my mistakes. But it's on the inside, it's nice and flat. It's very cozy. It just got really gross and rainy around here today, so perfect timing to finish this. As you can see, it's not pulling all the way in the way I was planning to. That was another miscalculation, and I'd like to tell you that doesn't happen for me all the time, but it happens a lot. But what I'm going to do, because I was planning on doing a little more work on this after, you know, the basic look was done, which it is. So I'm going to go and add some trim on the sleeves, do a little collar, but in terms of how to get a raglan started, how to make one for yourself, we've done it. So with that, thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing here, please like, subscribe, share, and consider tossing $1 at my Patreon to help keep things going. And I'll see you guys for 42.